So here we have an interesting article on Zero Hedge that comes from an article in India that talks about the founder of the U.S. Bioweapons Act says that he believes the coronavirus is a weaponized pandemic. In other words, it was intentionally manufactured. So I'm going to read through the article, then I'm going to tell you some more of my thoughts on this and why I think that it's important to be skeptical of official government narratives when it comes to things like pandemics and everything in general. So it says, creator of U.S. Bioweapons Act says coronavirus is biological warfare weapon. This is from GreatGameIndia.com as of today. In an explosive interview, Dr. Francis Boyle, who drafted the Biological Weapons Act, has given a detailed statement admitting that the 2019 Wuhan coronavirus is an offensive biological warfare weapon and that the World Health Organization already knows about it. Francis Boyle is a professor of international law at the University of Illinois College of Law. He drafted the U.S. domestic implementing legislation for the Biological Weapons Convention, known as the Biological Weapons Anti-Terrorism Act of 1989, that was approved unanimously by both houses of the U.S. Congress and signed into law by President George H.W. Bush. In an exclusive interview given to Geopolitics and Empire, Dr. Boyle discusses the coronavirus outbreak in Wuhan, China, and the Biosafety Level 4 laboratory, BSL-4, from which he believes the infectious disease escaped. He believes the virus is potentially lethal and an offensive biological warfare weapon or dual-use biowarfare weapon agent genetically modified with gain-of-function properties, which is why the Chinese government originally tried to cover it up and is now taking drastic measures to contain it. The Wuhan BSL-4 lab is also a specifically designated World Health Organization research lab, and Dr. Boyle contains the WHO knows full well what's occurring. Boyle also touches on Great Game India's exclusive report, Coronavirus Bioweapon, where we reported in detail how the Chinese biowarfare agent working in the Canadian lab in Winnipeg were involved in the smuggling of the coronavirus to Wuhan's lab from where it is believed to have been leaked. Here's a link to the video. So let's talk about why this is significant to start with. This isn't someone who's a conspiracy theory nut. This is someone who clearly takes the idea of using biological weapons for terrorism as a serious thing. So much so that he was considered to be one of the people on the cusp and help write the legislation that was to protect us from biowarfare and terrorism. So this isn't some nut. This is someone who researches and knows what he's talking about. He makes a couple claims here that are worth thinking about. One is that in his estimation, this is a biowarfare weapon. Now, there have been other reports that it's basically some of the cures or attempts to fight this outbreak that they're doing is HIV cures and HIV medication, which this is exactly how experts say a bioweapon would work. It would combine flu-like symptoms and flu-like illnesses with a spread that's like HIV. And so already we can see that this is troubling. So he sees aspects in that he thinks this is biowarfare. The other thing he says that's also very troubling is that the lab that this supposedly comes from is a World Health Organization lab. In other words, the organization, the global organization that's supposed to be protecting us from global pandemics itself is involved in a cover-up. And what they know, one of their labs helped develop a biowarfare weapon that has now escaped. Now, there's no word on was this intentional from the Chinese government, some sort of terrorist, a disgruntled employee, etc. We don't know. But if the Chinese government and the World Health Organization knows that this virus was manufactured in their labs, then they're doing us all a disservice by pretending, oh no, it just came from a seafood market and it was people eating bats and snakes that caused this. And if they're covering it up, that proves that they're not putting the best information out there to ensure that the most people's lives are saved as possible and that this is a limited exposure and has the most limited effect possible. Let's read a little more of this article and then I'll discuss my feelings on the whole thing. Dr. Boyle's position is in stark contrast with the mainstream media's narrative of the virus being originated from the seafood market, which is increasingly being questioned by experts. Recently, American Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas dismantled the mainstream media's claim that pinned the coronavirus outbreak on a market selling dead and live animals. In a video accompanying his post, Cotton explained that the Wuhan wet market, which Cotton incorrectly referred to as a seafood market, has been shown by experts to not be the source of the contagion. Cotton referenced a Lancet study, which showed that many of the first cases of the novel coronavirus, including patient zero, had no connection with the wet market, devastatingly undermining the mainstream media's claim. Such concerns have also been raised by J.R. Nyquist, the well-known author of the books Origins of the Fourth World War and The Fool and His Enemy, as well as co-author of The New Tactics of Global War. In his insightful article, he published secret speeches given to high-level Communist Party cadres by the Chinese Defense Minister General Qi Haishan, explaining the long-range plan for ensuring a Chinese national resistance, the catalyst for which would be China's secret plan to weaponize viruses. Nyquist gave 3 data points for making his case analyzing the coronavirus. He writes, the third data point worth considering, the journal Great Game India has published a piece titled Coronavirus Bioweapon, How China Stole the Coronavirus from Canada and Weaponized It. The authors were clever enough to put Khan's Virology Journal article together with news of a security breach by Chinese nationals at the Canadian P4 National Microbiology Lab in Winnipeg, where the novel coronavirus was allegedly stored with other lethal organisms. Last May, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police were called in to investigate. By late July, the Chinese were kicked out of the facility. The chief Chinese scientist, Dr. Jinggu Kui, was allegedly making trips between Winnipeg and Wuhan. Here we have a plausible theory of the novel coronavirus organism's travel. First discovered in Saudi Arabia, then studied in Canada, from whence it was stolen by a Chinese student and brought to Wuhan. Like the statement of Taiwan's intelligence chief in 2008, the Great Game India story has come under intensive attack. Whatever the truth, the fact of proximity and the unlikelihood of mutation must figure into our calculations. It's highly probable that the 2019 coronavirus organism is a weaponized version of the coronavirus discovered by Saudi doctors in 2012. Now, I'll end the article here, but I'll be sure to post a link. So here are my full feelings on this. First, I'm getting this from Zero Hedge, who is linking to the Great Game India. Remember, Zero Hedge has been banned from Twitter permanently for questioning the official narrative of the coronavirus. They linked a doctor's name in Wuhan that was possibly associated with the virus and with the lab that contained the virus, and for that, they were permanently banned. Remember, Twitter had no problem with all sorts of investigations and conspiracy theories being smeared against Trump, everyone connected to him. Had no problem with calls for violence from people from Vox and other places on Nick Sandman and other people, the doxing of people by CNN, etc. They allow all of that. But for some reason, the official establishment, mainstream media, and Silicon Valley outlets have this huge push that you can't question the official narrative of the coronavirus. Now, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert when it comes to biological weapons or terrorisms or illnesses or pandemics. That's a better suit for other people. I don't have an in-depth knowledge other than what I'm reading. But what I do have a knowledge of is understanding that governments around the world, including our government and the Chinese government, often lie to us when it comes to big events like this. They lied to us about the Trump-Russia collusion. They're lying to us about impeachment, etc. The Chinese government's no different. And so, of course, they have incentive to lie. It's also troubling that this was apparently a World Health Organization lab, which means they too are lying to us. And all of this lying is designed to, one, it could be as if this person, Nyquist, is saying that this is intentional by the Chinese military to get geopolitical success and be a better geopolitical rival to the United States and to shore up their own power in their own country. But even beyond that, even if it was just a mistake and we don't go through that angle, we know that governments are very want to not release information that they're incompetent as well. We see that constantly in the United States. China does the same thing as well. So we should question our governments and we should question agencies like the World Health Agency or organization when they're talking nonsense when it comes to these global pandemics. We're talking about not just people in the United States, but millions around the world that could be affected. I've seen some figures that say over 60 million could become affected and possibly die. So this is a serious matter that we should be looking at. You should not uncritically accept mainstream media narratives for things. We should question it. And there are a lot of problems that comes out with this coronavirus. So I'm going to link this article and I really hope that you'll look at it. So I'll keep you updated when I hear more about it. Again, I'm not a medical expert, but I could see, your antenna raises when you see, why am I not allowed to question this official story? Why are all questions of this being censored? And so that's why it's incumbent on us to talk to people. These aren't random conspiracy theories. Again, the first information I told you about this coming from a World Health Organization lab and being a weaponized biowarfare comes from the person who actually helped create the act in 1989, a doctor that's trying to stop bioterrorism. So it's worth looking into, and please be safe. Try to look critically at this information and don't just take anyone's word, including mine, at face value. Do your own research on it. But Something about it's really troubling to me, and I think that things are being covered up. So, hey, if you like this video, please like and subscribe. I'll be putting more material out as the week goes on. I'm finally feeling better. Got a live stream coming up tonight on the Patriot Super Panel. That's going to be at 10 p.m. Eastern on Doug Ducote's channel. You can check out my previous video for a link to that. And I'll also be doing a live stream tomorrow at 11 p.m. Eastern time. I got all my links where you can now support me on DLive. You can support me on Patreon. You can support me on PayPal. All of your support is greatly appreciated. I know everyone says, oh, please like and subscribe. Please, I really implore you. It would mean a lot to me if you could support me on some of those panels. So thanks so much, everyone, and have a good one.